Hi, it's Livy, and today's video is going to be a little bit unusual. While I am going to be talking about board games, it's going to be in a different context than I normally do. I'm going to get really personal in this video, so if you're not interested in that kind of content, then I suggest that you go find another video, because that's pretty much all I'm going to be talking about. This video is just me. So I knew this video was going to be hard to make, but I wasn't really ready for just how difficult this is now that the camera's rolling. I might not even end up posting this at all. I honestly feel like it's a toss-up at this point. But whether I put this up or not, I just kind of feel like there's something I want to get off my chest. So before I go any further, I just want to let you know that I am going to be talking about mental health, and in particular my own mental health, and I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to be talking about exactly yet, but I'm just going to throw up a trigger warning just in case, because I honestly don't know where this video is going to go. So I'm going to be real with you here. I have been struggling pretty bad for the past couple of weeks with my mental health. Now, this is really not unusual for me. I don't know entirely why it is, but there's certain times of the year where I seem to have a much worse time than others. For some reason, it's about January and February when I tend to have the hardest time just coping with everyday life. And it might be seasonal affective disorder, I'm not entirely sure. But it's practically the same thing every year, like clockwork. I start feeling really anxious, really depressed, and then I look at the calendar and realize, hey, it's January again. So as far as I know, I've been mentally ill for maybe my entire life. Of course, I wasn't really aware of it as a child, but looking back, I think I had pretty severe anxiety, even from a very young age. Now, I have pretty much the perfect storm for having bad mental health. I have bad genetics on both sides of my family. There's a lot of people with mental illness on both sides. I grew up with a lot of childhood trauma. I've had some traumatic events in my adult life. And so all of this together just kind of results in who I am now. So since I've been dealing with this for so long, I feel like I've gotten pretty good at dealing with it in my everyday life for the most part. I've had my diagnosis of anxiety and depression for more than 10 years now, and I'm at the point where I feel like most of my illness is now almost entirely kind of an internal biological thing. I don't have a lot of the emotional aspect of anxiety and depression the same way that I did when I was a teenager. And basically what it is at this point is when I'm having trouble with my mental health flare-ups, it's really pretty similar to somebody else having the flu. It's like I have a flu in my brain. Most of my symptoms are not really emotional. I don't oftentimes feel very sad or very hopeless anymore. It's honestly just kind of a lack of serotonin, and I can honestly feel that in my body. It's kind of a numbness, kind of a perception of seeing life in black and white when it should be in color. Food doesn't taste like anything to me. Things that used to bring me pleasure just doesn't anymore. And I know what it is the thing, and it makes it so much easier to cope with this, and so I feel like I'm really lucky in that respect. But even so, there are times when I am just struggling so hard to keep my head above the water. So you probably wouldn't know it from watching my videos, but I am an extremely socially anxious person and very, very introverted. That seems a little weird, seeing as how I make YouTube videos, I know. But it's the truth. The first time I made a YouTube video, I was amazingly scared, and I didn't think I could do it, honestly, and so I impressed myself when I did end up putting it up. Quite frankly, making videos is really hard for me. I think it comes out of my social awkwardness, it comes out of my kind of weird self-consciousness, and when I'm having a really bad time with my mental health, it's incredibly hard to go back and edit my footage because every word that comes out of my mouth just sounds so stupid, and I can't stand to look at my dumb face, and I just want to throw out all of my footage. But I know that I can't do that. I need to keep pushing forward. I can't give up. And so I do eventually get through it in the end, but it is very draining. I know it's not technically being social, making videos like this, but honestly, it feels pretty similar to being social. I'm talking to the camera in the same way that I would be talking to you if you were here right now. For the most part, this isn't really so bad for me. I mean, it's a little bit anxiety provoking, but I can get through it, and I honestly do have fun making my videos. It's an activity that I really enjoy, but lately over the past couple of weeks, it's been rough. So beyond just anxiety and depression, which affect a lot of people, I feel like my biggest obstacle right now honestly stems from my CPTSD, or complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I think this mostly is a result of a traumatic childhood, but basically it's changed the way that my brain works. So I have issues with something called dissociation. When I dissociate, I don't really feel like I'm real. Or I feel kind of like I'm a consciousness that's piloting a mech, or that my consciousness is in a balloon that's floating behind my head. I know that that's really hard to understand and it's really tricky for me to explain, but it's just this feeling of unreality. And dissociation is a very common coping technique that happens when you go through a lot of trauma. It's very useful for the brain because when you feel like you're not present, you're not there to experience the trauma. But the problem is that this is something now that my brain just automatically does when I am stressed or nervous. And when I dissociate, it's just like it sounds. I'm not really here. I kind of zoom in and out of reality, and I oftentimes lose my place in what I'm talking about. This has been very challenging recently, making videos, because not only is the filming process more stressful than usual, I find myself dissociating from time to time, and then I realize that I'm making mistakes with the gameplay. Since I'm playing solo, I don't really have anybody to tell me that, oh hey, you know, it wasn't time to do that, it's not that phase yet. And so I make mistakes, I forget where I'm at, I basically ruin my footage and I have to start again. Honestly, I'm beginning to dissociate off and on now, and I'm losing my train of thought. I hope that this isn't too rambly and that I'm not just going on and on about something that doesn't make sense. Okay, so so the big question is, of course, why am I talking about this? And I'm talking about this today for various reasons. But the biggest reason why I decided to make a video like this is because I really, really didn't want to make a video like this. Let me try to explain. So I've always been somebody who's really big on, you know, stop the stigma, mental illness is just another kind of illness, it's nothing to be ashamed of. And yet I feel like I'm constantly hiding a secret from my viewers. That I'm keeping a big part of myself held back, and that really, if I have to be fully honest with you, yeah, I guess I do feel ashamed, or at least a little ashamed of the fact that I'm struggling. So really, it's because of my lingering embarrassment, and it's because of my fear to talk to really you guys about this. That's why I made this video, because I felt like I was being a hypocrite when I always am telling people that mental illness is something that a lot of people deal with, that it's a lot more of a widespread problem than most people realize, that it's nothing to be ashamed of and should be talked about frankly, and yet I'm holding something back that feels like a dirty secret, and that just doesn't really feel very good. I think that pretty much all of us would agree that when we behave in a way that is contrary to our values and our beliefs, we just can't really be happy and comfortable with ourselves. I know that if any one of you told me that you were struggling with your mental health, that I wouldn't judge you for being crazy. And so I guess I just have to have faith in my audience that you guys will also not just call me crazy and see me completely differently from now on. I guess maybe some of you might, and I'm willing to accept that there's always going to be some people who don't understand or can't understand. But I also want to help other people feel brave enough to be upfront about their personal struggles, because honestly, I think that holding things back and keeping your mental illness a secret is the most dangerous thing that you can do when you have a mental illness. And not getting help is, well, it's just something that you shouldn't do. If you know that you have an illness, or if you suspect that you have an illness, then you should go to the doctor. And it doesn't matter whether it's a physical illness or a mental illness. But the interesting thing is, I think that if I didn't have problems with my mental illnesses, I don't know if I would be making this channel today. Because, quite frankly, playing board games and playing game books and things like this solo, it's a direct method that I use for coping with my various issues. I find the process of playing with physical board game components to be very soothing. I really enjoy the escapism of a good choose-your-own-adventure type story. I love the meditative mindset and calming ritual almost of unboxing a game and going through and playing it. I don't think it would be a stretch to say that solo board gaming is my main go-to coping mechanism. And solo board gaming hasn't always been my go-to coping mechanism. I used to cope in ways that were a lot less healthy, smoking and drinking and self-harm and things like that. I think the reason why solo board gaming works so well at achieving peace for me and for a lot of other people, it's because it's a slow, thoughtful sort of process. In many cases, it's a puzzle, or it's a thing that you need to engage with that takes your mind off of whatever else is bothering you in your life. If it's a narrative sort of game like The Legacy of Dragonholt or For Against Darkness, you can spin a story and get lost in that. And sometimes solo gaming is just a form of escapism in that respect, or a way to fantasize about fantastical realms. A lot of people feel the same way about video games, but I prefer board games because for me, my dissociative symptoms are made worse when I don't have something to do with my hands. So shuffling cards, moving pawns and tokens, feeling and touching and manipulating components really helps to bring me back and keep me grounded and keep me in the present instead of just kind of flying off. This is why I always refer to myself as a pretty hardcore analog gamer, and that's because it's the tactile component that's involved with solo gaming that is honestly half of the experience for me, at least when it comes to just trying to calm myself down and find a minute of peace. I think it is just so good for my brain to unplug from the internet, get away from everything with a screen. No notifications or texts can reach me when I'm in the zone playing solo games. And it's just a really good way to reset, to focus my attention on one task instead of multitasking. It brings me a very profound feeling of peace, and I almost always feel better after a solo gaming session. I know that obviously a lot of people, but not everybody struggles with mental illness, But even so, I think that everybody has moments where they feel like they're overwhelmed, and the input is just getting overwhelming around them. They're overstimulated. And I think that solo board gaming is something that maybe everybody should try and see if it's something that works for them, and gives them a moment to breathe and reflect, and just kind of escape for a little while. So that's ultimately really why I made this channel. That's ultimately why I talk about solo board gaming. It's because I want more people to know about it. I want it to become a more widespread sort of hobby, and I want it to be seen as a little less strange. I know playing board games with yourself sounds very weird and lonely and maybe honestly kind of sad, but for me it's a really healing activity, and I think that other people could benefit from trying it out too. So yeah, anyway, I guess I just thought that I owed it to you guys, that you guys should know what's been going on with me, why I sometimes might do the things that I do or behave the way that I behave. I thought that I would hold this back from you guys and keep it a secret, maybe forever. But now I'm kind of coming to the realization that I shouldn't, because I really don't have anything that I should be ashamed of, and that other people shouldn't be ashamed to admit that they have mental health issues too. I'm currently undergoing the process of looking for an inpatient rehabilitation center somewhere for my trauma. I would really like to go to a place that I could get EMDR therapy and do some other really intensive work, and hopefully kind of untangle this knot of trauma that has taken up just so much space in my brain. And then at that point, when I do find an inpatient clinic, pretty much the minimum stay for the kind of treatment that I need is 3 months. And so I guess I would have had to tell you at that point anyway where I was at and what I was doing, because I wouldn't really feel good just lying to you and saying like, oh no, I'm just busy for the next 3 months. If I have to take a break from filming because I'm going to a medical facility, I don't want it to come as like a huge shock or surprise for you guys. I mean, if I do this, it's still probably more than a year off down the road, so not really anything to think about in the immediate future. But yeah. So one of the things that I've been struggling with the most these past couple of weeks has not just been my normal mental health issues, but it's also been a lot of anxiety around this channel. I know that I don't actually have any 9-card playthroughs or reviews up yet, but I promise you that I'm working as hard as I can, and I really am playing the games. I'm building them, I'm learning the rules, and I'm spending a lot of time with them. But I've just for various reasons have been finding it really, really hard to film. This makes me feel really anxious because I'm afraid of letting you guys down, and I'm afraid of what you'll think of me, whether I'm just lazy and spending all of my time, I don't know, playing video games or something. So I have something I want to ask of you. I'm asking you to please be patient with me over the next couple of weeks. I've been through this same cycle many times, and I know for a fact that life is going to get easier for me pretty soon. Maybe even within a couple of weeks. It's usually around March that I start feeling pretty perky again. But in the meantime, I'm just really hoping that you can be patient with me and forgive me if I'm not releasing videos as often as I should or as I want to. This doesn't mean that I will not be holding to my commitments, however, but I absolutely promise that I will fulfill all of the commitments that I have made to the 9-card contest. I'm still going to be doing the playtesting. I'm still going to be doing the playthrough and review videos. I have a couple of games that are coming to me in the mail that designers wanted me to review for them, and I will absolutely be doing these as well. I can promise that the work that I need to produce will be made available within the time frame that it needs to be made available. Like I said before, solo gaming is how I cope. I'm doing a lot of solo gaming at the moment, even though I'm finding it really hard to film. Um, a lot of the 9 card games this year are actually pretty fun and interesting, and I'm having a good time just kind of sinking into them. It might be possible that I'm having a harder time this year than usual, also because I am going to be turning 30 on the day after Valentine's Day, so that is coming up really soon. And I know it sounds silly, but I just don't want to be 30. I feel like I'm getting really way too old. Maybe this is what they call the quarter life crisis or something. Like, I'm 30 and what am I doing with my life? I don't know. But that's probably at least partly why I've been having a harder time this winter. Just so you know, I do have the gameplay from 4 games ready to go, so I just need to do the actual review part for these 4 and then edit them and release them, but I don't think it's going to be taking too much longer. It would just take a really huge pressure off of me if I just knew that you guys knew sort of what's going on with me, and that if my uploads are late, it's not because I'm lazy or not because I don't care. I really do care about this channel, and I really do love the material that I cover, and I really do love working with all of the designers and trying new things and helping to raise awareness for my favorite hobby. But yeah, I struggle sometimes. I know that I'm going to get through it. It just makes me feel a little bit better now. It's a bit of a relief now knowing that this isn't really a secret anymore and that hopefully you guys understand a little better. So yeah, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Honestly, I I don't expect that a lot of people are going to get this far because just based on what I've been rambling on about, I don't know if this video is going to make a lot of sense or if it's just going to be me repeating myself over and over. But it really means a lot to me that you stuck around to listen to the end. Thank you so much. More videos will be coming your way soon. I promise.